Our club's always been a forum for visionaries, public figures, and decision makers to command attention to the issues of our time and inform the most relevant, compelling, and challenging conversations. Here we offer first-person access to dynamic political, business, and public personality.
The Canadian Club is one of the most important podiums anywhere in the world that a Canadian can speak to, tell Canadians what it is that they think, develop those thoughts. And so I want to thank you for that very, very much.
Please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists today.
Through our programs and events, including our youth and young leaders programs, our diversity partnerships, our joint events, and our media and social media opportunities, we offer you access to dynamic political, social, and business figures from abroad and right here at home.
The platform from which the eloquence of Canada has flowed all of that time, whether it be business, education, politics, sports, arts, and culture. If someone wants to say something to Canadians about this country and about the future of this country, this is the venue you choose.
Good afternoon again, and a special welcome to those joining us online at canadianclub.org. Thank you for spending part of your afternoon with us. Once again, my name is Glenn Parkinson, Canadian Club President and your host this afternoon. We're grateful to our sponsors, EY, CIBC, and Canadian Bankers Association, who support our events and make today possible. Our official airline partners, Air Canada, we'll also recognize, and Canada's Forest Trust Corporation partners with us to make our entire season carbon neutral. So thank you to our sponsors for making this happen. Now, today's a special event at our club. We often explore and debate issues, whereas today we're celebrating achievement and contribution. However, as always, we encourage you to ask questions. Our honored guest has built a legacy that is wide-ranging and impactful, and I'm sure there are many, many questions you'd like to ask him and our moderator today, so please use the question cards in the center of your table. Jot down your question and hold it up, and we'll bring it into the discussion. Similarly, for those of you online, on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a button that says click to submit question, so if you do that and submit a question, we'll also bring it into the moderator. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest of honor. Peter Gilgen needs very little introduction, so I'll try to keep my remarks or the details brief. One of 7 children of Ed and Mary Gilgen, Peter grew up in a tight-knit family that instilled in him an appreciation of the value of hard work and a generous community focus. Training as an accountant, he soon demonstrated his entrepreneurial spirit and ventured into the home building business in 1978, founding Mattamy Homes, which is now the largest privately held home builder in North America. As his business grew, so did his philanthropy, and in 2006, he organized his giving activity into the Peter Gilgen Foundation. And through the foundation, he's been a true difference maker on many topics like mental health, children, youth and families, climate change, international development, and Indigenous youth. With several landmark gifts in recent years, the Peter Gilgen Foundation is now the largest, by far, benefactor to hospitals in Canada. And I'll recap some of these in a moment because the scale of the generosity is really something. But first, I might share just a very short story that I think you might find enlightening if you let me. So, his dual involvement in home building and hospitals may have been foreshadowed actually rather earlier than it appears. You see, in 1994, Peter was building a treehouse with his children. He's got 8 children, I didn't mention that. But 5 of them were helping him build a treehouse in the backyard. So Peter was the foreman, and there were 5 young charges that were the construction crew. They were committed to doing it themselves. They each had a job and were proud to be a part of the crew. So far, so good. Unfortunately, what this crew possessed in youthful exuberance, they lacked in health and safety protocol. It seems that somehow, someone had left a hammer balanced on the very top of an 18-foot ladder. And at one point, when Peter moved the ladder, the hammer stayed where it was, momentarily, and then rather like an anvil in a cartoon, came hurtling down from the high height and struck Peter on top of the head, as the children looked on in stunned silence. Now, the passage of time does things to one's recollection of the facts. And I came to this story decades after it happened and found that there was actually no clarity as to how that hammer made it to the top of the ladder. But digging into it, what I've learned is that this was not a case of certain details being lost to time and history and the retelling. It turns out that how a hammer got to the top of the ladder was a mystery seconds after the event happened. In the commotion following the not-so-trivial head trauma, the young crew determined that, incredibly, nobody had put the hammer on top of the ladder. In fact, some doubt was even cast on whether any of the kids had ever been on a ladder in their life. And so no one's ever been able to explain it. And to his credit, I don't believe Peter made much of trying to get to the bottom of it. But what has now become something of a family legend is that, punishing head injury or not, there was still work to be done. And Peter and the crew shook it off, continued working for the rest of the day. And later that night, when the kids were in bed, Peter then made his way to the emergency room at Oakville Trafalgar Hospital. And that's a true story. Now, Peter's involvement with hospitals since then is more widely known. A few examples of his transformational giving include February 2022, he made a historic gift of $105 million to Trillium Health Partners, the largest donation to a hospital in Canadian history. In June 2019, he gave $100 million to the Hospital for Sick Children, the largest donation ever given to sick kids. And in September 2017, he donated $10 million to the Promise campaign of St. Joseph's Health Centre in tribute to his parents and his childhood in the West End of Toronto. He exemplifies his foundation's mission by his active participation in Les Domestiques Cycling Club, focused on serving others through support, leadership, and advocacy. This inspiring and proud father is a shrewd and successful business leader, a generous philanthropist, and truly a community builder in every sense of the word. Today, we add to his long list of accolades, which already includes Officer of the Order of Canada, Canadian Business Leader Lifetime Achievement Award, Ontario Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Entrepreneur of the Year, and many, many more. We'll now learn a little bit more about our Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Leading a conversation with him now is one who knows him quite well, his son, Luke Gilligan. So, Peter and Luke, we're delighted to have you with us, and the podium is now yours. Welcome.
Good luck.
Thank you. Oh, you're in for it now.
It was Luke, the hammer. Yeah.
I'm here to tell you it was me. Yeah. Well, there was a production schedule to work with, right? You
Yeah,
couldn't stop that.
The cycle time was really important. You know,
I
get that thing finished.
I wasn't the one that left the hammer, but I was the one that found the receipt in the car a few days later from the hospital that said skull draining. So, yeah. So it's my pleasure to be doing this afternoon. I will give one caveat, which is over the weekend we both participated in some of the Ride to Conquer Cancer, along with a number of folks here. And then on Saturday night had a bachelor party. So if we're fighting the fog of war up here, that's why a little bit. It was a long weekend. I will also say that none of this is prepared. We always prefer to keep things kind of casual and fluid. That's certainly my intention today. I have a couple of questions here that I've prepared that hopefully kick off the conversation, but really would encourage you to complete the pages on your tables, and I can synthesize and get any other interesting questions up, then I certainly will. The last thing is that as soon as the domestiques found out I was moderating, they immediately came up and said, "Are you going to roast him? Are you going to roast him?" No, I will not be roasting him. I'm sorry to disappoint 3 tables here. You ready? All right. So Glenn did a really nice job of listing off a number of the honors that you've been given, including sort of a string in the last recent years, a number of Lifetime Achievement Awards, the Chamber of Commerce, the War Child Lifetime Philanthropy Award, and now, of course, Canadian Club Lifetime Achievement Award. How do you think about that, all of these Lifetime Achievement Awards? What kind of thoughts come to mind, and how do you reflect on that?
I would say one thing that I always pity people that get Lifetime Achievement Awards, because the inference is that they're kind of done. So I prefer to just use the word Achievement Award and forget the lifetime part. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's an honor and a pleasure and all that good stuff. And we have to, modify one drawer in the closet for
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable.
So you don't see it as a, here's your hat, here's your coat, there's the door, Lifetime Achievement Award, you're done now. You don't feel that way.
No, there's still a lot more honors to receive.
There you go. All right, so keep those checkbooks ready there, domestiques. A lot more lunches. I was struck.
I have to make a lot of my cycling buddies and my colleagues here suffer through a lot more lunches, so
That's right.
They deserve it. Yeah.
I was struck again, Glenn, in your opening when you did a toast to Canada, which I thought was a really nice start. And it's not something that I will say I've seen very often. I thought it was really nice, and then made me think that as a proud Canadian yourself, despite the fact you have a very large U.S. operation as well, in what ways do you think being a Canadian has shaped your identity and your philosophy to business, for better or for worse?
I only know 2 countries that we do business in, like Canada and the U.S. And until you start doing business, and they're going to come out of a roundabout way. Until you start doing business in the U.S., you assume that things are quite similar, but in fact they're not. I would say Canadians in business are significantly shaped by the view the country has of itself, and I think that our country generally, and I'm comparing it only to the United States because that's the only place I'm really somewhat qualified to talk about it at all, but we're not as proud of our country, for example, as Americans are, not by a half. And I think it reflects on how we see our opportunities to excel in business in a more globalized world. So, Canada outperforms on its inventions and totally underperforms, and it's a fact, and underperforms on the commercialization of those inventions. And the commercialization of those inventions is left to those south of the border who say, we can do this, we can make a success out of this business. So, and that just tends to permeate all of our hesitancy in moving forward with things. Canadians, I would say, to much generalize, are probably above average in intellectual ability in business and any kind of enterprise. I would say was definitely, I would score us as a nation to be above average, but below average in, not in ambition, but in determination to succeed. And that's something that I'm seeing a few nods from those of us that that look at things a little in the global competitiveness, and that's an area where we got to just suck it up and believe we're good enough to kick butt around the world.
So I had a follow-up, which was, what's your call to arms? But it sounds like the call to arms is kick butt, everyone. Okay, got that? Kick butt. Okay, I switch gears now a little bit, and you're always the first to say when your success is celebrated. You didn't do it alone. You had a ton of amazing partners and mentors through the years. And I guess that's the topic I want to go to next, which is mentorship. When I say mentor, and you look back on your career, who's one or two people that come to mind, and what's the best piece of advice they ever gave you?
So there were three, and one was really much on the practical side, learning about home building. But the two sort of broader business advice were both folks in the real estate brokerage business, actually, and it was leading into market downturns. And I witnessed two as a young accountant, and then viscerally felt three when I was in business. And on those first two, the advice I was given was very similar, which is acknowledge that things have changed really quickly and get on top of it, get out in front of it. Don't be caught in what we might call that recency bias and say, well, recently I used to be able to do this, and so I'm entitled to do that. Again, the world changed around me and I don't wake up to that fact. So it's sort of run for the fire, embrace the fire, go to cash as quickly as you can, unload your inventory, and be ready to re-up when things continue to soften, because you're the person with cash and you can step in and during the end of any downturn cycle is when the opportunities, sort of in the last quarter of the downturn, when the opportunities usually come up, which is when a lot of people are only just coming to realize that they made a big mistake and not embracing the downturn earlier. But if you've done that, and you've got the credit then, or the cash, or both, you have a huge opportunity to up your game. So it's they say, it's kind of Warren Buffett says the saying, run for the fire, don't run away from it, and that's kind of what I've learned to do.
So on the topic of real estate then, where in the cycle do you think we are now? And are you running towards that fire, or are you running away from it, or how are you thinking about things?
Yeah. Gosh, do you really want to get into this? Look,
You only have so many sweet spots.
yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. My dismissive answer is I'll let you know when it's over. I'll be able to tell you when it's over. Look backwards. I'll be a
Great
predictor.
prognosticator.
But, yeah.
Very good.
But seriously, so two countries, two different environments. I surprisingly we're in a few markets in Canada. We're in most of the markets that matter, and we've been successful in holding on to our market volume, while the actual volume in the trade areas we're working in has dropped to half. So effectively, we've doubled, and in the case of Ottawa, more than doubled our share of the market. We were at 12%, 15% in Ottawa. We're at 30% now, for example, market share, which is in the home building is unprecedented. Thank you, Brad, for that. And we're looking 30, 32, 34, 35. Whoa, so okay. So anyway, so what we always try to do in a downturn is work under the premise that we try to put our human capital first and say, these are the best people, they're well-trained, they know the job, we work as a team. So if we can keep these careers cooking along, the business makes a little less money, that's okay, because our human capital is more difficult to replace. And then as the market goes back up, and we just try and stay on the elevator when the volume goes back up and hold on to that market share and thereby increase our overall size. And but you can only do that. Besides the human capital, you got to have that financial capital, and that's sort of closing that loop. Our good friends that loan us money, they tend to often be a little out of cycle with what's going on. So they'll probably loan money into the downturn a little longer than they should, and they'll be reluctant to loan money when the market turns back around a little longer than they might otherwise be prudent for them to do. So it becomes that old adage, cash is king toward the end of the cycle, when you can, make the best deals in real estate. If I look at the big sort of, business kind of goes like this a little bit, but not really. It kind of goes like that, at least in this business. And those step ups have always been right at the end of a recession.
See, it was a good answer.
Okay.
I had one more question on mentorship, and maybe you just already covered it, so if you have, just say skip. But I know you enjoy mentoring other young entrepreneurs quite a bit, and I wonder if there is either one thing you consistently see that people misunderstand about entrepreneurship, or one consistent advice that you now give out to young entrepreneurs.
So, you cannot teach entrepreneurship, in my opinion. You can't teach someone how to be an entrepreneur. You can teach people the tools. There's a big distinction. You can teach people the tools which will allow them to be successful in entrepreneurship. But wanting to be an entrepreneur isn't something you can learn in school. Wanting to be is something, it's in your bones, it's in your DNA. You can't take someone who's not wired to be an entrepreneur and say, hey, here's $25 million, go be an entrepreneur. It just doesn't work, in my opinion.
Great.
There are a number of people that, and I hear this a lot. Like I'll see in people the capability beyond often what they see in themselves. I find that all the time. And I'll encourage people to really examine what they're really capable of. But having said that, whether they have the internal fortitude, the internal courage to act on that, or whether they're overwhelmed by the fear of failure and can't move forward with an entrepreneurial adventure, that's up to the individual. And I see that very, very often in the folks that I talk to.
Great. I'm going to shift now to some more family-related topics, and I'm going to ask this question that I used to get asked a lot, and I get asked a lot less now that we work together. And for the record, this is not me grinding a personal axe here, okay? But people would often remark that you have 8 children, 6 sons, 2 daughters. None of them actively work in the management of the business. So from your perspective, how did that come to be? And if you could turn back time, what would you do differently, if anything?
Well, similar to what I was saying before, you can't just say, congratulations, you're an entrepreneur, here's your crown. You have to want to be. And the mistake that many business founders make sometimes is that they'll anoint some of their children to take over the business, and that heir has absolutely no passion for the business, no desire to run the business. They're just doing it sort of out of a sense of obligation or something. And when that happens, I don't think anybody's happy. I don't think the business is happy. Certainly the individual's not happy. And in the case of you guys, my message was always just find something you really love and do it well. And that's all I can ask. And it was only kind of after a number of you guys had gone out and explored lots of other things in the professional world, the business world, that somehow you figured out that the best goddamn thing, no, the best, that you've said, maybe there's some things going on, and Dad's place could be really interesting to me, and that's what I really wish for anyone that runs a business is, you can have great professional management, which we do. We have got the best, and if your children can learn to be good business owners, that's great, but don't expect them to automatically be version 2.0 of the founder of the business or something like that. Sometimes it happens. In a number of cases it does. We've some folks sitting in this room today that it's clear evidence that they've carried on with the same family name, the business that was founded by a previous generation. But it's just not something that should be on automatic.
Got it. Okay. So what would you do? Nothing. Answer was nothing. Got that? What would you do different? Nothing. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask another question here in the same vein as the Lifetime Achievement Award, just to really irritate you and make you think the curtain is closing, which we know it's not. But when you think about that word legacy, what do you hope yours will be, and how are you thinking about how it continues to be shaped and evolve right now in this chapter of your career?
These are really tough questions.
Well, I know. It's because you make people come to all these events. I can't ask the same ones over and over.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Right. So it's clearly going to be something about what I'd like it to be is someone who's a citizen of the world, passionate about helping the world to improve, and I firmly believe that the world improves through improvement in their economic circumstance. And particularly, I'm talking about the southern globe, where the evidence that we can see. Huge opportunity for their situation to improve with economic development is an area of very keen interest to me, and I hope that that can become a more significant part of what I leave behind, and in 30 more years or whatever, and all that good stuff, and not just leave behind, but leave behind what we call kind of the ripple effect of it, that others have become engaged in somewhat through our efforts, my efforts, and our efforts in the foundation, that others become, others and some others in this room become more engaged in contributing to improving our planet.
Great. So two follow-ups, I think, can come out of that. I'll start with the philanthropic side. I have received a few questions on that from the crowd as well, which I appreciate. So what inspired you to start on your philanthropic journey, and kind of what continues to encourage you to continue to invest so much, personal financial resources into philanthropy?
So really, it's just really out of really, it started out as just a sentiment, really, a sentiment of gratitude that I'd done just in the first 2 or 3 years in business. I'd done way better than I expected, and I saw an opportunity to try and say thank you to a particular institution that had brought me a lot of joy, and it was called Joseph Brand Hospital in Burlington, where a bunch of you buggers were born. A bunch of you guys, anyway. And it wasn't necessarily the most analytical decision. It was really kind of a sentiment sort of thing that seemed like a miracle that Mother would go in there looking a little distressed, and a day later there'd be this gift, screaming there. Screaming there. Anyways, but the miracle of life, and I guess I just was sort of moved by that, and it was, and oftentimes then philanthropy for me in the earlier days was about who was asking, and I had a little phase in my life where I really got into the sort of either helping run or in some cases running capital campaigns. And I found that to be a miserable job. I just hate asking people for money, especially, they see you come and they go on the other side of the street and stuff. So that's when I decided, oh, hell, I'll just write the check myself. It's much less.
The path of least resistance, a true philanthropic inspiration. There is a question related to philanthropy that you touched on a little bit, but I'll ask you to say a little more around your current and increasing interest in philanthropy around the world, or the global south as you referred to it. Where did that impulse come from, and how are you starting to think about that?
Well, as a family, we made a couple of trips to Africa, about 10 years ago, I suppose now, and I was just, it changed my life, really. It changed my view of just the awareness of how happy people can be with so little, and how much better it could be for them, and how much ambition there is amongst many to do better, but they just don't necessarily have the tools. Some of you have heard me tell the story before, and it's kind of a combination cycling philanthropy story, where riding in the bike in some countries in the southern hemisphere, which we've done, and you ride through this back road and you come across this school with a bunch of grade school kids, and they've all got a little uniform on. They run up to the fence and they look at you with all these really bright eyes, glowing eyes, and full of curiosity and excitement for life and so on as 10 years old. And then half an hour later, you ride the bike through a village somewhere, and there's all these young adults, more or less sitting around doing not much, and there's no light in their eyes, none. And 15 years before, there were those kids in the schoolyard. So, and I see it time and time and time again, and the issue to me is they're just, because there's no opportunities for them for employment, there's no career for them, and it's usually, you roll it back, say, why is that? And it's often because they didn't get an education. Because, so they're not qualified to do anything except extremely menial manual work, very ungratifying for most of them. So it's not, okay, you kind of put two and two together and say, well, maybe education is kind of the key to economic prosperity in many cases. Not in every case, but in many cases that, 2 + 2 kind of thing makes 6. And that's been a big sort of influence for me.
Okay, so last question on philanthropy then. If there's someone in the audience with a little bit of extra change burning a hole in their pocket, starting to think about getting started on their philanthropic journey, what advice would you give them?
Two things. No, three. First of all, try and engage your family. Try and engage the family early. For us, our experience has been that my children not really children, but what do you call it? What's that?
Progeny?
Progeny, okay. There's an
Are there lawyers? Issue in the world
my
for
issue,
lawyers?
my issue, yeah,
God,
okay.
that's the
Thanks,
worst.
Luke, yeah.
Your issue.
There's an embarrassment of wealth, right? As the unproud Canadians as we are, oh my gosh, why do we have so much money and so on? And the conversion of, and why do you want to make so much more money? Well, yeah, because we can do things with that money that help other people. And it's really been something that my issue have no issue with. And in fact, have really, it's really been kind of a cohesive thing for our family. So that's one thing. Second thing would be to with yourself and or your family, if you've been able, and your family, if you've been able to engage them, is go through a very rigorous exercise of saying what are the things we care about, and that's not just something you want to take casually. It's something. In our case, we used a lot of professionals to help sort of channel our starting really broad and then narrowing things down, and we did lots of sort of weekend exercises that some of you will recall, some of Brad and Luke, and where we, to try and boil the ocean down to the few things that our family is more passionate about. And when you're passionate about something, you're going to take more interest in, you're going to learn more, you're going to make better judgments about it than something that just somebody recommends, okay, fine. And then lastly is do enough due diligence before investing in a particular project to improve the odds. It's never a certainty, but to improve the odds that the project is going to be successful, it's going to actually result in tangible, measurable benefits to the group that you're targeting to be supportive of. And it's not just to feel good, it's to use your best efforts to make sure that there's a good return back to those whom you're helping to support. So we're just finishing right now close to finishing a study that we commissioned about 6 months ago on looking at both and taking a completely global scan as to where we might take our foundation, and we intend to sort of double down on the money that the foundation has available to it over the next several years. And some of the projects we're looking at are very, let's say, very broad, but very narrow in their focus. And others are like very more narrow in their focus, but very, very deep. And we haven't really decided yet, but it's really been a very eye-opening exercise to do that. And the pun of what I'm saying is that one of the projects that's being suggested is 50 million pairs of reading glasses for people who cannot afford reading glasses and who are in the 40 to 55-year-old age bracket, that they should still be working at doing something, but because of vision loss are unable to perform their duties, unable to earn an income, and the revenue loss to their economy and to their family is like in the billions and billions of dollars. And we try and calculate actually a return on investment, and that one sort of comes out at a 23% IRR. Is the math on it. So that's sort of interest, And so it's getting maybe a little bit too bean countery from my background.
Can't help yourself.
I just can't help it. No, we can't. But it's like, that's a pretty good return. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm just going to go into my final topic for the afternoon, and this is obviously a personal bias of mine because it's an area where we share a great passion, but it also is a topic that came up through a number of the cards, and that's around sustainability. So in the last couple of years, you've made confronting climate change a key priority for your business and philanthropy, and I'll just start with why.
Well, the evidence is all around us, and
okay, perfect.
you know, yeah,
Make sure we acknowledge that. Thank you.
yeah. And that's really simply it. It's very real. And on the business side, we have the ability to significantly reduce both embodied carbon and operational carbon in the buildings that we're building in the future. And it's a very meaningful to myself personally and to our family. One of the things when we did all these sticky note exercises and was a real concern about the environment shared right across the whole family. And so that kind of gives you a little more backbone to really dig in on it when you know you've got everyone really, frankly behind you on it. And you, let's say, from an offensive position, they're behind you. From a defensive position, you'd better do it, or else you're kind of going to get in trouble with some of your daughter-in-laws and things like that. And I don't want that to happen. That's for darn sure. So anyway, buildings account for, depending on whose numbers you believe, over 30% of carbon production, both between the construction, mining, and so on, and content that goes into the buildings and the operational emissions during the life cycle of the building. So if we're a 30% contributor, that gives us both an opportunity and an obligation to try and make as big a difference as quickly as possible, while also at the same time being, financially responsible about it. And it has become the everyday language of the company. We think about ways to engineer sustainability into everything we do, both operationally and in operational efficiency of the buildings and reducing the carbon content while we're building them. And there's an area in the future, one of the two businesses I want to start, one of them is will be very much focused on reducing the carbon content of the buildings themselves. So I'm pretty excited about that possibility.
Okay, so I'll ask as my final question then a version of what I asked around philanthropy. If there's someone here who in their business really feels passionate about getting started on improving carbon reduction emissions in whatever business they're in but doesn't know how, what advice would you give them?
Speak to Luke.
Right. Good to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah. That so much varies with the business you're in, because you might be able to directly affect carbon emissions, depending on if you're producing things or building automobiles or something like that. Or you might be in a business where you can influence only carbon reductions. And one of the things that significantly might come to mind might be, say, the banking industry, where, we can recycle paper in the offices and so on and so forth, and turn the lights out and so on, which is great and it's helpful. But as a percentage of the ability to influence, if industry, if the credit industry, favors green projects and so on, they can have massive influence on the ability for certain green projects to go forward. Government's the same kind of thing. The government itself can't, because they don't make anything except more taxes.
You found the room.
Okay.
Found the room.
They can't necessarily contribute themselves, but they can influence by policy ability for a more sustainable future.
To those that submitted questions I didn't get to, I'm sorry, but we are out of time. I will just close by welcoming Glenn back up and saying honestly, it was a great honor to have been asked to do this. I appreciate you inviting me to do it, and I think I can speak on behalf of the crowd when I say we all appreciate your openness and candor, and congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
Thank you. I echo that, and Peter, thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to celebrate your many contributions today, and we're inspired by the many ways you and your foundation improve the lives in our communities in Canada and beyond. So congratulations, and I know it's not over. There are many, many more contributions to be made and maybe even baubles to be collected. So look forward to many more lunches of your celebration. So thank you for accepting this part of your Lifetime Achievement Award. And as you exit, Luke, thank you for providing such an enlightening and entertaining conversation and view of your father. We appreciate that immensely. Before we close, I'd like to draw your attention to 3 events coming up very shortly. On Wednesday, we welcome the President and CEO of TELUS, Darren Entwistle, to our podium. Thursday, the Honorable Seamus O'Regan, Federal Minister of Labor and Seniors, will be with us. And then next Monday, June the 17th, in the evening, we have our annual Pride event. And this one will be a discussion with Rainbow Railroad. Please visit our website at canadianclub.org for more information. Thank you to VVC Live, our AV partner, for facilitating today's event. And one more thank you to CIBC, EY, and the Canadian Bankers Association for your support today. And to all of you here in the Crystal Ballroom and those of you online, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye now.